David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
If you watch my program with any regularity, you probably won't be shocked to hear me say that I'm against violence, I'm against terrorism, I'm against criminality and vandalism. So I have to call it out no matter who the perpetrators are. And there's a story that's gotten relatively little coverage, but is extremely disturbing, which is that a self-described anti-fascist and anarchist showed up at an ICE facility near Seattle, Washington, firebombed the place, attempted to burn cars, buildings. I'll have the details for you in a second. The man ultimately died after being shot by police. He actually said that he was motivated by the recent immigration raids and deportations that the Trump administration has been undertaking. And the facility in question had actually had an organized protest earlier in the day, and the firebomber showed up after hours, very early the following morning, 4 or 5 a.m., threw incendiary devices, lit a car on fire, tried burning down buildings and a propane tank, and generally wreaked havoc. We're talking about a 69-year-old, and as I mentioned, police ultimately shot him dead. Now, the same guy was arrested last year at a protest outside the same detention center after allegedly jumping onto a police officer. We know the man's motivations, because before he showed up, he wrote a letter to friends calling it a manifesto, saying he was going to, quote, take action against the forces of evil, specifically fascism and, quote, concentration camps. He wrote, I am Antifa, although later he also said he's not actually affiliated with any organization. So listen, when these things happen, it's important for progressive commentators to talk about it. When we don't, we do two things. Number one, we give the right ammunition to claim that the left only covers right-wing violence and to say that we are hypocrites. We don't want that. We are not, the hypocrisy right now is mostly on the right, and we need to keep it that way. If we're against violence, we need to condemn it in all forms, no matter the political orientation. Now, just as importantly, it's important to talk about these stories because it does provide another opportunity to mention that the overwhelming majority of politically motivated violence in the United States is right-wing, period. So I know, as is often the case, many people on both sides are going to be angry with me for this story. There will be some on the left who are angry that I'm even talking about this incident. They will say this was just a mentally ill guy. The fact that he said he was an anti-fascist or whatever, or against Trump's concentration camps, he's really just a mentally ill guy. David, you shouldn't even be talking about it. There will be people on the right who will be angry because they'll say, David, this is a story about left-wing violence. Why are you making this about right-wing violence? Well, listen, left-wing violence exists. This particular incident is also being described as either a suicide by cop attempt by people who knew the man, that mental illness was really the factor here, but it doesn't matter. Either way, this is one incident. At least at the surface level, the radicalization appears to be left-wing radicalization. Okay, in a country of 340 million people, there will be examples of everything, but the bigger numbers point in really clear directions. And it's that most of the political violence in the United States comes from the right. When it comes to Antifa and condemning them, this show has never been a show that placates or embraces these types of groups. I have been completely against movements that use violence in order to try to achieve their political goals. Number one, when it comes specifically to a group that claims to be anti-fascist, when you say you are against fascism, and this goes now to Antifa, not to this guy who wasn't even affiliated in any kind of formal way with these groups. When you claim to be against fascism and you employ violent authoritarian tactics to suppress what you see as fascism, it's implicitly contradictory. Number two, remember, Antifa is tiny. How many people are we even talking about here? This is not how positive change will come to the United States. And I've made that clear. And I don't know that I need to really try to bolster my credentials of being against violence. That's been made pretty clear over the last many, many years on the program. Number three, this particular guy considered himself an anti-fascist, but made clear he's not part of any group. So this individual was a combination of someone who, yes, does appear to have significant emotional disturbance, who has been radicalized, but is also independent and with access to firearms, which is not something that's been discussed. Most of the coverage of this story, which, as I mentioned, the left should be covering it. I've mostly seen only the right cover it. The right has not even mentioned the firearms component. If you're going to seriously talk about what's going on here, talk about the radicalization against fascism and against Trump's deportation. Sure, that's a part of it. Talk about mental illness. That's often a part of any incident where people are motivated to do this stuff. Talk about the guy's affiliation. Sure, talk about all of those things. How do you do the story, though, without talking about the fact that this guy had ready, easy access to firearms that in many countries he would not have had access to? You're not seriously covering the story unless you also talk about the firearm component. So we on the left don't have to shy away from covering these stories anecdotally. People like this are not nearly the biggest problem that we're dealing with. I completely denounce this person's actions. I completely am against any of these violent actions by anybody under the umbrella of Antifa or whatever group they claim to be a part of, no matter what ideological or political agreements or disagreements I would have with anyone on the left, right, middle, anarchist, whatever. These are tactics that I am against, full stop, period. And the left doesn't need to shy away from it. And in particular, we don't need to shy away from it because we are right on the issues. And again, most of the violence, if you really want to deal with political violence in the U.S., you are disproportionately dealing with right-wingers who are the source of that violence. Disagree with me? Many of you might. I'm open to hearing from you. Change my mind about anything that I've said here. I'm on Twitter at @dpacman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. We have a tremendous, tremendous Friday show for you today. And we will take a quick break and continue right after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
All right, today's new members of the day are Aditya Agarwal as well as Joey Perillo. Thanks to both of you for being David Pakman Show members, the #1 funding source for the show. YouTube is up and down, ad dollars are up and down, but membership has really been what has secured the boat, so to speak. Floating, keeping the boat out on the water, I guess is the way I would say it. Sign up at www.joinpakman.com. Stay a member for a long time. Someone who's done that is Kadrin Barash, who is also a David Pakman Show YouTube moderator and David Pakman Show subreddit moderator. Thanks to Kadrin, who has been a member for nearly 5 years. www.joinpakman.com. All right, let's get to the phones at 617-830-4750. Lots of people with much to say today. Let's start with our caller from the 408 area code. Who's calling today from 408?
Hi, David.
Yeah, that's you.
Hi, David. This is Fook. I'm a staunch Democrat from California.
Great.
Going into the 2020 election, I have a concern that I've been debating with my friends, and I just wanted to know your thoughts on it.
Sure. What's the concern?
I have some coworkers who are, Trump supporters, and I'm concerned about both the enthusiasm, energy, and voter turnout of Democratic voter. I know that Hillary, she had the same demographic voters that Barack Obama did. It's just not enough. It was less. And speaking from personal experience, I have family members and friends who, they're not regular voters, but they did come out to vote for President Obama both times. When it came to Hillary, they just weren't excited by her. Some of them thought that she was going to win anyway. Some of them, they just weren't as excited. So some of them didn't come out to vote for her. And I'm concerned that will want a Democratic candidate that could, energize the voters. I'm not seeing that right now in the field. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts.
Well, I think the issue is bigger than the field right now. I mean, I don't know that right now we can say, listen, in all of the head-to-head hypothetical matchups, basically every Democrat who has a shot at winning the nomination is doing well against Trump at the national level. But remember, Hillary had more than enough votes to defeat Trump at the national level in the popular vote. The problem was because of 77,000 votes or 72,000 votes in 3 states, she lost the Electoral College, which of course is what matters. I mean, we've got an Electoral College election. I'm not pretending like that doesn't matter. So I think that every year we always hear similar storylines. Whoever can get out the vote is going to win. This year, the millennials and the young people who weren't old enough to vote last time, they're really going to come out for X or Y candidate, and that will be the difference maker. And in the end, it's like the trends are always the same, which is that the Electoral College favors Republicans over Democrats at a systemic level, that young people don't end up really voting that much, and the most reliable voters are the older folks who have been voting for a really long time. So I share with you the skepticism about voter turnout, but for me, it's not so much connected to any particular candidate. It's a much more general thing. I just think a lot of the enthusiasm that started when Donald Trump was elected and inaugurated has faded, partially because people have become numb to the insanity, partially because of what's called scandal fatigue, and partially because of normalization. So I share your concerns, but for me, it's much more overarching than about will Kamala Harris versus Bernie versus Biden get people to come out and vote.
I know right now a lot of the candidates, Democratic candidates, they're talking about policy and such, and that's sort of on an intellectual level. I know that a lot of voters and a lot of people, they vote. It's kind of a popularity contest. They vote based upon their feelings, how they feel about a certain candidate. Some of the Trump supporters, they said that, they don't care about the lies. They don't care about all the scandals. What's important is the way that Trump made his voter feel.
Right.
Trump made his voters feel that they are on a winning team. They're on Team America, trying to make America great again against these enemies or these opponents that are like fake news, the immigrants, etc. And I wonder about, Barack Obama, he made people, they don't really remember all his policies or what he says, but he made people feel hopeful for change. He made them feel cool. And that's why they were excited. Even my family members who don't normally vote, they came out because President Barack Obama, he made them feel great. Yeah. So right now I'm worried that we're talking so much about intellectual things, about policies and such. I mean, I'm wondering if the candidate knows to focus on how to make voters feel positive and good and to come out and vote.
Super important. I take issue with the idea that talking about policy is like this over intellectualizing esoterics thing. I think it is important, but I think the key is to mix the two things you're saying. I think candidates should be able to talk about policy in a way that will directly relate and connect emotionally to the voter in a way that is important to them. Very important points. I really appreciate the call, and I hope to hear from you again. And I share the concern about voter enthusiasm. No question about it. Let's go next to our caller from the 646 area code. Who's calling today from 646?
Hey, David, this is Chris. How you doing?
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Good. So this is in response to your Hey Trumpists, Just Tell Me the Truth video.
Okay.
Which sort of felt like a call to arms almost for Donald Trump supporters to sort of admit that he's a racist. Is that a correct assumption of the thesis of the video?
No, I mean, the point was not so much to get the Trumpists to admit that Trump is a racist, but it's more importantly, it wasn't to every Trumpist. I was not implying every Trumpist is racist, but the ones who are should just say, yeah, I like Trump's xenophobic rhetoric. Just tell me,
Right. So sort of what I'm going at is that it's been a really common strategy among the Democrats to label their opposition as racist. And my fear is that this is sort of going to fall under deaf ears. Like you use the word fatigue. I think that's the perfect word to use in this situation as well. So basically my question is, can the Democrats win on a platform of labeling their opposition as racist, or will this fall under deaf ears for the moderates?
Yeah, so I disagree with the premise of your question because I've not seen any of the candidates currently running for the 2020 Democratic primary where I could say their platform is to call Trump and his supporters racist. So in that sense, I reject the sort of foundation of your question. That being said, I do think that you are correctly pointing out that merely alleging racism is not a political strategy, and that you need to be able to connect with voters on more than that, particularly because there are lots of racist and xenophobic voters. So this is sort of my point. You and I, we may disagree on the degree to which calling people racist is Democratic strategy, but it sounds like you and I agree that it is not a good political strategy to the extent that anyone is employing it.
Right. Well, even like with Kamala Harris, she really heavily went after Joe Biden over the bus issue.
Yeah.
Where it felt like that was sort of the central point of what she was trying to accomplish through the debates.
Yeah, it was
saying,
totally calculated,
like,
and it worked in terms of optics, but it was clear that it was a complete calculation that had been made ahead of time.
Right, but don't you agree that the candidates, like if you look at their Twitter, I remember yesterday, Bernie Sanders is like, we must admit that we have a xenophobic and racist president, blah, blah, blah. This is a very common thing we're seeing more and more of, and I'm just worried that that's going to alienate the moderates.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to alienate the racists for sure. And I think you're right that if there is a sort of swayable middle in terms of the election, if all they feel like they're seeing from candidates is allegations that Trump is racist, it's not going to be particularly good. But to be clear, my message on, I think it was Monday, maybe it was Tuesday, my message was not about running a campaign about Trump is a racist. It's I would just respect Trumpists who are xenophobic and racist much more if they came clean about why they like Trump instead of couching it as economic or trade policy or whatever else. That's all it was. It was not by any means suggesting Democrats run a campaign based on Trump is racist.
Right, but it's also hard for people to understand that because every single speech that Trump does, he talks about how good the economy is doing for marginalized groups like Black people and Latino people.
Yes.
So on one ear, they're hearing people saying that their candidate is a racist, but then on their other ear, they're hearing the candidate himself talk about how good the lives of Black people and Latino people are. So it's confusing.
Well, that's the case in politics all the time. The debt is up, the debt is down. The deficit is up, the deficit is down. We're winning the war in Iraq. We never should have been in Iraq. I mean, that's not particularly new. The fact that voters are hearing literally opposite stories from different people in politics, that's politics.
Right. So what you're saying is, I guess the thesis of what I was asking was, do you think this could alienate moderates? And you're saying I'm working on a false premise.
Could what alienate? Well, you said, do I think that Democrats running on Trump is racist could alienate moderates? My response was, I don't really think any candidate is running on that, although candidates are talking about Trump's xenophobia.
Okay, great. I mean, I completely disagree, but thanks for having the conversation about it.
All right, Chris, appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's go next to our caller from the 484 area code. Who's calling today from 484?
Hello?
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, hey, David. I'm Steven. I'm calling from Pennsylvania.
Hey, Steven, if you can speak up or get closer to your phone, that would be great.
How about now?
Yes, that's much better.
So my concern is that, well, Trump was, he had some sort of interview or press conference talking about Afghanistan, and he was bragging that he can wipe out Afghanistan out of, out of the face of the earth within 10 days.
Yeah.
My concern is he did it so casually, and he has more information about our, not only, our opponents in the Middle East, but also there are plans for Russia and other, countries around the world of this is how we can, defeat China, for example, within 2 weeks, something like that. So my concern is, if he's out of office, what do you think the chances are that he can casually say, oh yeah, I remember while I was president, we could take pretty much any country within a couple weeks. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean by if he's out of office and he says that. So for people, but the comments are outrageous. For people who don't know, Donald Trump said that if he wanted, he could have Afghanistan wiped off the face of the earth, but that he didn't want to kill 10 million people in doing it, which is an absolutely insane thing to say. It strikes me as sort of flippantly indifferent to the possible mass murder of millions and millions of people. And you're completely right that the casual nature with which he said it, for me, reminded me of, I thought we were told that it was Hillary who was a risk for getting us into wars and bloodthirsty and all of that stuff. Whereas we know Trump has considered war with who knows how many countries at this point, and has casually mentioned if he wanted Afghanistan to disappear as a country, he could do it. So my concern is not about when he's out of office, what he'll say. My concern is right now.
Right. However, for example, he has information about, top secret, officials in
Yes.
certain areas around the world. He knows where spies are located. If I remember correctly, last year, he shared a photo of SEAL Team 6 or something.
Yeah.
And people were saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. You just literally blew their location, and they're like, elite, soldiers, having certain operations,
Yes, he did do
like
that.
they have
That's
certain
true.
missions.
He did do that.
Yeah, so he did. As far as I know, this is his second time revealing what is pretty much top secret plans.
I don't think it's top secret. No, I don't agree with you there. I don't think Trump revealed any. He didn't say we have the plan of wiping Afghanistan off. And I think anyone who just knows how many nukes we have knows that from like a logistical perspective, we could blow up the entire country. That's true. So I don't agree with you that Trump revealed anything classified by alluding to his bloodlust when it comes to Afghanistan. But I just think it was an extremely concerning thing for him to say, particularly how he said it.
Right, but again, if he was talking about logistics for nuclear weapons, for example, that is literally something that can take less than half an hour to do, and
right,
because nuclear weapon testing. Not to mention there are nuclear submarines in the area around the Middle East, in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
So, based on the research I've done, it takes about 15 minutes of flight. Like how far? Like if it was to be launched from the U.S., it will take about 15 minutes just to get to Moscow, for example.
Okay, I don't know those numbers, and I'm not sure where you're going with it, but the comments were very, very concerning, and I appreciate the call, Stephen. I'm going to move on. I'm not sure where we're going with that last piece, but I'm glad you're paying attention to what Donald Trump is saying. Let me take a quick break. If you're holding, don't hang up, because I will go right back to you just after this brief break.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
All right, let's go back to the phones at 617-830-4750. We will go first to our caller from the 267 area code. Who's calling today from 267?
Hello?
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, hey, David. My name is Joel. I'm from Philadelphia.
Hey, how's it going?
I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciate what you do, man.
Thank you.
To be honest with you, one of those videos of people saying they were brainwashed and thinking the alt-right is the truth, the real truth, and the left is bad, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I was one of those people, to be honest with you. This happened I guess a year or two ago, because I was originally left-leaning, but it's right after Trump got elected, I started watching all these videos of I don't know, just people just debating left-leaning people, and then they just get mad and stuff like that.
Hold
and
on,
then,
but who were you watching? Who were you watching on the right that appealed to you?
Infowars.
Okay.
There was this one, yeah. They would debate people, and they would make them seem super emotional, like crybabies.
Yep.
You know.
So that appealed to you on an emotional level?
Yeah, kind of. I just didn't want to associate myself with those kind of people, because I wanted to be more mature. So I thought the right was way more mature,
Right,
So
I guess that's very interesting, because it shows us the importance of not only making the right arguments, but making them in the right way. But so like you're saying you were left wing on policy, like you were, I mean, like, so what were some of the things you believed before you were sucked in by Alex Jones?
Well, I kind of believe I was a huge supporter of like immigration, you know, like
Okay.
I I didn't really like believe in all the right wing policies of like immigration. I was in majority like left wing. I was in support of like immigration and all that stuff. Basically that, because I didn't really know that much about like politics and policies and all that
So it
before.
doesn't
But
sound like
now
you
I'm
were,
really
it doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you were so much left wing as you were sort of just not that involved in politics. Is that fair to say?
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair, because before I didn't really know that much about policies and politics or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like for left leaning presidents like Barack Obama and stuff like that. I was for like the Democrats,
Mm-hmm.
because like my family is majority left leaning, so
I see.
like I would just like go with them. But then I would think like the media makes Trump like out to be like a bad person when he's not really that much of a bad person. That's why I was thinking before.
I
I thought
see.
the media was lying stuff about him, but like that's what they maybe want to believe. Because I was listening to people like Mark Dice, and like I felt, and you know, I just thought like this dude was like he was speaking the truth and all that shit like that. But like I was like such a piece of shit back then. I'm not going to lie. I feel like such a piece of shit because I
Okay, and
felt
so
like
every time you swear,
I
just so you know, we've got to bleep you because of the broadcast. But so you felt like a bad person. I gotcha. So you were watching
yeah.
InfoWars and you were watching Mark Dice, and anything else you were watching in particular?
Not really, not that I can think of,
Mm.
but those were like the main ones. And like I just felt like I had a lack of empathy for most people. Like I remember back when that hurricane hit Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I was watching it was like an interview of like this woman like grieving for her like loss of her housing and stuff like that, and I laughed.
Hmm.
I laughed at it, and that's, you know, looking back and now I felt like, you know, a terrible person.
Now, with
But
peace
like
and
now,
love, I don't know that does Alex Jones make you not care about a hurricane victim? That, quite frankly, seems like it's related to other things going on in one's life, don't you think?
yeah, I mean, I was just saying, I'm just saying like I really hated myself back then.
Right.
Cause like people like you and Kyle Kulinski, like y'all brought me back to like, you know, having that high, like, you know, those good morals and stuff like that. Cause like I even tried to tell my dad about it, and my dad told me that he said like I don't even know what I'm talking about, you know. And looking back on it now, he was right.
Yeah, I'm understanding.
I legit did.
I'm understanding. I think the circumstances. Well, listen, I'm glad that it sounds like you're doing better now, and it sounds like you had a lot going on at the time. I'm glad you're not you know, subscribing to InfoWars conspiracies anymore. And
Yeah.
best of luck. All right, my friend.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate your phone call. Thank you. Let's go next to our caller from the 805 area code. Who's calling today from 805?
Hello?
Yes, it sounds like you are
Hello?
both on speaker and at a bowling alley. Can you hear me at all?
I'm so sorry. I'm on a boat currently. But,
You're on a boat trip?
I'm on a bus. I'm sorry.
You're on a bus. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so can you hear me properly?
I can sort of hear you, yes. What's on your mind today?
Hey, so, I'm calling to ask kind of a tactical question.
Okay.
About, kind of like how the Democrats should kind of navigate 2020. I know that recently there's kind of that, like, I know recently Destiny made a video where he stated that kind of working to like run like congressional candidates that don't use corporate PAC money and don't really that are kind of uncorrupted. It's kind of a very privileged, it's kind of a very privileged position to come from. It's kind of you're taking a stance that that you're prioritizing a very kind of an abstract principle of purity over the well-being of people who are most affected by the political circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was just wondering, do you think that there is value in can we really justify trying to run candidates without corporate PAC money, uncorrupted candidates, if it results in more Republicans winning?
Very good. Yeah, I think I got it. Listen, I think that I haven't seen the commentary you're mentioning, but in short, I think that not accepting corporate PAC money is a great thing, and I hope it becomes the new normal. I do think that if it's going to cost you seats, then we have to question what is it that it is going to help us achieve if we are literally losing to Republicans as a result of doing it. But it's so crazy where you are that I'm going to let you go. Maybe you can call back with a better connection at some point, because I hope you're not driving the bus. I hope you're just on the bus, because it sounds like it is really, really chaotic there. Let me go to our caller from the 562 area code. Who's calling today from 562?
Okay, this is Jonas. Is this me?
That's you, yeah. And what's going on with your phone?
Oh, what's going on with this? Oh, sorry. What do you mean?
I don't know. It sounds like you're talking through a pillow.
That's really weird. What is this any better right now?
It's marginally better. Yeah. What's your question?
Yeah, what's your question?
Okay. Okay, so my question here is...
Okay,
so
but now
own,
your voice has changed. Is this the same person, or did you hand the phone to somebody else?
No,
okay, no, I'm hearing myself on a 3-second delay. I got to bail out. I'm sorry. It sounds like you're listening to this on a... We've got 63 people holding. I can't deal with that right now. I apologize. Let's go to our caller from the 401 area code, our friendly neighbors to the south in Rhode Island.
That's me, right?
Yes, that is you.
Yes, hello. My name is Michael. I live in Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Woonsocket, very lovely place.
I have a lot on my mind. I have plenty of questions, but I got one. How can we, just looking at the kind of complete political mess, it reminds me a lot of the antebellum era. I feel like we're so divided. How can we coexist? I don't feel like... Excuse me. I'm on a spectrum, so just follow me.
All right.
Okay. We can't even. We don't seem to agree on reality, basically. And,
yeah.
And there's one side that just seems they just keep on demonizing us to the point they see us as anti-American, and I'm beginning to see them as anti-American. And just how can we coexist? How can we? This is just ridiculous.
You've gotten to one of the fundamental issues that's going on right now, which is if we don't even have a shared understanding of the most basic truths about reality, I don't know how we work together to solve anything. And that's where we get these situations where one party gets into power and gets a couple of things done around the edges, getting around the obstruction of the other party, and then the situation reverses. And meanwhile, it's the mass of people that lose. It's people who are hoping to get a raise, whose wages have been stagnant for 40 years. If you're in the bottom 50% of the country, it's a healthcare system that still doesn't work for tons and tons of people, even people who can afford their premiums, but it's still a terrible system. I mean, you're right. I don't have an answer. This is one of the areas in which I am least optimistic in politics, which is...
the Democrats,
yeah.
they seem more concerned about, what the moderates think about. Well, what about the center right or the white working class? What they care about? I don't understand what I'm saying. They're worried about a group of voters that won't vote for them. You don't see Republicans caring about
I don't
minorities.
think that's stupid. I mean, I don't think we should write off how certain portions of the electorate will see the policies of Democrats. I actually think that's important, and ignoring that is how you end up with terrible candidates that lose elections. So I disagree with you that it's bad to think about that, but I think it all has to happen sort of like a broader context of understanding the world in which a candidate is running. But I don't think it's a bad thing for Democrats to ask those questions.
But like these, I know, maybe I'm just like, we have like Biden who thinks, oh, we can work with the Republicans. No, we can't work with the Republicans. We can't.
Okay.
We just can't.
Now you're talking. Yes, there's a difference between considering how a white working class voter will see the policy of a Democratic candidate versus these completely out of this world ideas that as soon as we have a Democratic president, Republicans are going to work with us on stuff. It's like, no, they're not. We know from experience that they're not. Look at the first 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency.
Yeah, like we should have like this is my problem with the Democratic Party. They don't have that. There was an interesting article I read. Republicans understand powers. They're insane abortion bills. Basically, they show how they understand power. They're in power. They want to do what they want, and they're going to do it no matter what. Like, if only Democrats had that spine. Well, we want to have Medicare for all, so we're going to do it, and we're going to steamroll it.
Yep, they seem to understand that, and Democrats only sometimes do. Listen, really appreciate the call. Great to hear from our folks down in Rhode Island. Hope to hear from you again. Let's go to our caller from the 813 area code. Who's calling today from 813?
Hello?
Yes, that's you.
Hey, David, I'm calling to ask if you think that there's going to be a rift forming in the Democratic Party, especially in regards to the next debate, between people like Yang, Klobuchar, Gabbard, and sort of identitarians like Julian Castro, who talk about, giving abortions for free to, men who think they're women.
Sorry, what are you talking about?
If you think there's going to be a rift or some kind of
no, I heard. What do you? So hold on. I'm trying to. Julian Castro is what's an identitarian, first of all?
I shouldn't have said identitarian. It's not their own identities that they're concerned with. It's a lot of their platform has to do with identities. A lot of their rhetoric has to do with identity.
Okay, and Julian Castro wants biological men to have abortions. How does that work medically?
He's talked about providing abortions, or at least he's talked about transgender women in regards to free healthcare and providing, free abortions to them.
How does someone without a uterus have an abortion?
That's my question.
Okay, that I've not heard that brought up, and I can't imagine that that's really a serious issue in the 2020 Democratic primary.
Well, that was just that point that's really minutia. That was just so I could exemplify kind of what I mean by people who embrace identity and whose rhetoric have to do with identity. The real question is, do you see a rift forming between Yang and some people who are moderate like Gabbard or Klobuchar, a rift forming between them and people who largely talk about identity?
No, I don't. I don't see a rift forming along those lines. And also, most of the candidates you mentioned are going to be gone by the third debate. So I think they're going to be non-factors in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, the really key one there is Yang.
Yeah, I mean, Yang, Gabbard, and Klobuchar, and Castro, quite frankly, is on the fringes. I don't know that they're going to make it beyond the second debate. So I don't think we're going to hear that much more from them pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. And you don't see people kind of going after Yang, especially if he gains more popularity for not really embracing, like really UBI goes against a lot of the identitarian stuff because it's for all Americans.
What do you mean by identitarian?
I mean maybe I'm using the wrong word, identitarian, but I mean people like the thing you were talking about earlier, how Kamala Harris used that whole busing thing as a club,
mm-hmm.
To bash over the head of Joe Biden. and
Listen,
on the basis of our own
I'm going to be
identity
totally
and
honest with you. I think that you've got to reframe your understanding of the Democratic primary, because I think you're digging in niches that are completely fruitless, and I would just kind of like rethink my understanding of the slate of candidates before I go any further. Appreciate the phone call though. Great to hear from you. That's it for calls today. Thanks to everybody who called, and we will take calls again.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Okay, let's get to audience questions. First one, very timely. Next week, we have the second set of Democratic 2020 primary debates. Viewer wants to know, hey, David, does Bernie debating with Warren in the second debate help or hurt either or both of them? Yeah, so last time, Elizabeth Warren was on night one and Bernie Sanders was on night two. There's sort of two answers to this question. One is, let's deal with the specifics. Is it better or worse for Bernie and Warren to be on the same night, given that they are appealing to a largely similar wing of the Democratic Party? Before we even get to that, remember, eventually it's going to be just one night. This entire thing of having two nights is only happening because there are way too many candidates, including a ton of candidates who have no chance whatsoever. So understand that on the first night, along with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, Tim Ryan is going to be on the stage. The guy has zero shot. Marianne Williamson's going to be on the stage. Amy Klobuchar, Delaney, Hickenlooper, Bullock, they have no chance. And the only reason why we're even talking about the possibility of them being split up on separate nights is because there are so many candidates and it's pushing the debate into two nights. That ends after this debate. They're going to be on the same debate stage eventually. So the conversation applies only to one more debate. But let's actually play it out. If they're appealing to widely the same slice of the Democratic Party, are they better off, Warren and Bernie, by debating on separate nights and being on each of their respective nights the sort of prominent progressive choice? Or are they better off on the same night in order to create the perception, which is not an inaccurate perception, that there are multiple good choices if your priority is a more progressive candidate, particularly when it comes to the primary economic issues of inequality and economic fairness and so on and so forth? I believe that they are better off on the same night. They are two of the most prominent candidates. If you look at who is in the lead right now, it's Biden, Bernie, Warren, Harris, and then it's Buttigieg. Biden and Harris are on night two. Buttigieg, Warren, and Bernie are on night one. And by being there together, my hope is, and we'll see if it actually is borne out by their performance, that they are going to eclipse everybody else who is on that stage as clearly being the folks who are the furthest to the left and have the specific ideas and understanding of the issues. Bullock's going to be a non-factor. Pete Buttigieg is climbing. He's just desperate to climb. His polling has gone nowhere. If he wants to be in this thing, he has to make a move to get closer to the top four candidates. He is going to be trying really hard, but he has a lot of trouble talking about substance. I think Bernie and Warren are going to do really well in relation to Pete Buttigieg. Delaney and Hickenlooper, they're not going to be factors. Amy Klobuchar often embarrasses herself, and last debate she did terribly. I can't imagine she's going to do much. Beto O'Rourke imploded in the last debate, and he'll be lucky to avoid any possible gaffes. Tim Ryan looked shell-shocked during the entire last debate. Can't imagine he'll do much. And Marianne Williamson has this sort of funny cult following, but she doesn't really have a shot. So Bernie and Sanders being together, I think, is going to show how strong the serious, detail-oriented, policy-oriented, progressive wing of this primary is. And I think that that's going to be a really good thing for them, assuming, of course, that the timing and the spread of the questions is not unfair in some way, assuming that the format, even though it's designed to prevent, actually, by definition, serious depth on issues, allows Bernie and Warren to really show how much more detail-oriented and how much more sophisticated their understanding of a lot of these political issues is compared to the other candidates. If the format allows that, if the moderators allow that to some degree, I think it will be a really good thing for Bernie and Warren to be up there together. My guess is you will start to hear discussions after next week's debate of there should be a Bernie Warren ticket. Bernie Warren, Warren Bernie, whatever your sort of preference is. My expectation is that, assuming things go as they often do with both of them in their respective debates, that is a conversation that's going to be happening. I'm not worried about them being on the same stage. And more importantly, by the third debate, they will be on the same stage because there won't be enough candidates to justify two nights. Second question today. Hey, David, does Trump win by making the squad the face or faces of the Democratic Party? I actually disagree with the premise of the question. I don't believe that Donald Trump is making those four ethnic minority congresswomen that he attacked with such xenophobic ideas as they should go back to their original countries. They still have relatively low name recognition nationally outside of their districts. And it's really, I know it's hard for people who do politics every week like we do, or people who follow politics like many of you in the audience to understand this. These four congresswomen are not very well known to the American public. My guess is AOC is more well known than the others, certainly. But outside of political circles, these are still individuals who have relatively low name recognition or face recognition. They're also, we've talked about the popularity thing. They're not hugely popular. They're not unpopular, particularly the way Donald Trump tried to make them seem on the basis of polling of non-college educated whites. Big shocker. Non-college educated whites don't love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and the fourth one, Rashida Tlaib. But they're not particularly unpopular or particularly popular, is the truth. And what you also have to understand is that Donald Trump's approval is highest, it does best, when he's altogether silent. And these four members of Congress are keeping Donald Trump fired up. They are keeping him going nuts. They are continuing to push him to put just ridiculous things on Twitter that, yes, his own base is probably unaffected by, but independents and people who are sort of influenceable, reachable, don't particularly like it when Donald Trump goes on these tirades specifically attacking people. So what Trump wins is not, let me step back. This doesn't mean that focusing on these four Democratic congresswomen isn't good for Trump in other ways, okay? I just disagree that he's making them the face of the Democratic Party. The win for Trump in calling these four women out, in talking about them, in focusing on them, is that he helps to divide the left. And when you play up those divisions, when you make those divisions appear bigger than they are, that is why we need to be careful about this, because that is not good for the Democratic Party. Trump appearing to take a side in the squad versus Nancy Pelosi, to the extent that that's even really a thing, it's good for Trump, it's bad for Democrats. Any political capital, time, and media time that between now and November of 2020 is spent on internal fighting within the left is good for Trump. And this is why I said at the beginning of the week, on the topic of impeachment, Democrats need to just agree. We're not going to do an impeachment inquiry and we're not going to talk about it anymore. Or we're going to do one in like 6 months because that's when it will be most damaging to Donald Trump. Or we're going to do one right now. And they need to actually say out loud, if we keep doing this publicly, where I say I want an inquiry and you say you don't, and you say you do, and the media cycle continues, this is not good for our chances to remove Donald Trump in November of 2020. That is how Trump wins, by playing up the squad controversy. He's not really making them the face of the Democratic Party. And these are still relative unknowns to non-political average Joe and Jane Doe, Joe and Jane Schmo. In the Doe implies, I think, that they're dead. Schmo, not Doe, in the United States. If you disagree with me, change my mind. Last question today. Hey, David, why do some of these foreigners on YouTube obsess about American politics? I'm thinking of Sargon of Akkad and Steven Crowder. Why aren't they talking about the politics in their country instead of riding the wave and talking about American politics? Well, you answered your own question, riding the wave. So the people that are being referred to, Sargon of Akkad is a British gentleman who's actually named Carl. I know him as Carl Benjamin, but he goes by Sargon of Akkad. He's British. He talks a lot about American politics. That's true. Stephen Crowder, I believe, is American by birth, but he mostly grew up in Canada. The question about whether he's really more Canadian or American is more of an academic one than a real important here and now question. But the question sort of answers itself, which is a lot of the countries that speak English are much less interesting politically internationally. This doesn't mean that they don't have interesting internal politics. Canadian politics matter a lot to Canadians. British politics matter a lot to folks in the United Kingdom. But this is a money grab, and it's a way to get attention, right? I mean, you talk about American politics. The United States has 340 million people who live here, or however many. This is a relatively wealthy country. So if people want to support your commentary on American politics, they are more able to do so in terms of income. And I'm not talking about just the countries, Canada, UK, and the US. There are more people all over the world that are interested in American politics than are in Canadian politics or British politics. So they're doing what's going to get attention. I mean, quite frankly, if I lived in Argentina and I did a show, I was born in Argentina, that's the relevance. I don't think I'd be doing a show about American politics. I do a show about American politics because this is where I live and I'm most in touch with what's going on politically here. And it affects me in a much more direct way than it would to do politics of whatever other place. If I lived somewhere else, it doesn't seem that interesting to me to follow the politics of the United States and do a show about it. So you'd really have to ask them. I know that Carl has been asked, why does he talk so much about Trump, maybe? I don't even remember what he said. I haven't seen one of his videos for a long time. I actually am unsure if he's even still on YouTube. I know he was kicked off of some platforms. I don't even know. It's really a question for them, but to me, it's just it's the audience. You get much more attention talking about American politics than you do about Canadian or British politics on a global level. Within those countries, there are lots of popular domestic policy programs, and I think they're just going where the money and the attention is. Prove me wrong. If there's some other reason, then I'd love to hear it. And if they're just going to say, well, American politics is agenda setting globally, so even in another country, you're still very much affected by American policy. Okay, I mean, it's kind of feels like a very mealy-mouthed milquetoast response, but okay, that can be part of it. Let me know what you think explains the focus on American politics by so many foreign YouTubers and online personalities. We've got a great bonus show for you today. Get access to the bonus show instantly by becoming a member or a patron.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.